Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to another episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker.
And me, DB Fastbinder.
And if you are new to, or if you're returning, welcome back. If you are new, what we do on the show is that we critique stuff. We usually review something new or contemporary, and then pair it off with something older or classic. Although last week we did two classics, and this week we have two newer things. So we're definitely mixing things up.
Right. And our definition of newer is within the last 10 years of release. So,
Yes. And we also have some solo things that we like to review as well that we've been watching on our own. And but to start us off this week, we watched Asterix and Obelix. The big fight.
Asterix and Obelix, the big
Asterix and Obelix. Yes. Yes. Now, I have never heard of this series before, so this was all new to me.
I'm somewhat familiar. Where I got introduced to it is that in my high school, if you were taking a European language class, there were at least a few translated Asterix and Obelix comics sitting in the background or in the back of the room. It's
okay.
like I read a couple of these in German because that was the high school language I took. Since then, I've seen a couple of the animated movies. Like a buddy said, "Hey, I used to watch these when I was a kid. Let's give this a go." And they were just kind of goofy fun, and goofy fun is basically the brand here. I would say tonally, it's like One Piece if it took itself less seriously.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a goofy fun. Yeah.
Yep. And it's based on a French comic series that's been running since the late 50s. Well, October 1959. Basically a 60s book, but
Yeah.
technicalities. And it's about a pair of Gallic heroes who are so powerful that not only could they resist the Roman Empire, they could also make a Netflix original that's worth watching.
Yeah. Who'da thunk it? And hey, Arcos, good to see you. Yeah, it is. It definitely has a DreamWorks feel to it with the animation style.
Yeah, and also I was looking this up. It is the top or is the second best-selling comic series in history, only behind One Piece.
Which is kind of hard to believe.
It's basically like soccer or cricket to us Americans. You kind of have to have an in to actually know what the hell it is.
Yes. But yeah, so the series, as DB points out, it follows this Gallic village, which for those of you who might not be students of history, or students of history. So this takes place. It starts off in 78 BC, and then it jumps forward to 50 BC. And it's about this Gallic village called was it Indomitable?
I think they were just I don't know if the name of the village was Indomitable. I think they were called Indomitable because they are holding out against the Romans.
Okay, yeah, and they're the last village in Gaul, which for those of you who aren't familiar, Gaul is France.
Right. And Julius Caesar, part of the reason he got powerful enough to become emperor, or at least to be imperator for life, or whatever his title was, I forget off the top of my head, is because he went in and brought the Gauls to heel after years of fights between them.
Yes, and of course, the reason that this one particular village is able to hold off against the Romans is because they all drink this magic potion that makes them really strong.
Yep. And the movie does a very good job of, I keep wanting to call it a movie. It's technically a miniseries.
Yeah.
But it is, you could basically with no effort whatsoever, cut this to a single theatrical movie.
Yeah. Actually, I think if you take if you add the run times of every episode, like minus the credits, I think it comes out to somewhere around 2 hours. So.
Well, let's see. I think the episodes were with the. Let me pull this up. I think with the credits, the episodes were clocking in at like 37 minutes. But because this is such a big brand and Netflix makes dubs for all of their territories,
Yeah.
the credits for each episode were kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes a piece.
Yeah. So I want to say.
Yeah, like 35-ish minutes a piece.
Yeah. And then I think the second one, the last episode was like 45 minutes.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they could have easily, it made it into a movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know why this was chopped into bits. I don't know if that helps their retention. I don't know if this started life as a movie and it got turned into a TV series, but that's neither here nor there. So if I slip up and call this a movie, it's because to me it is a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you could, we watched it in one sitting, so that's kind of why it feels like a movie. But yeah, so our titular heroes, Asterix and Obelix, they've been friends since they were little kids, and of course, Asterix is always bailing out Obelix because Obelix is just a little slow. He's not entirely stupid, but he doesn't really do things very well, and we learned very early on when they were kids. He has a dreadful fear of public speaking.
Yes, always passes out.
Yeah.
And what's also, so we'll say it's a classic. It's almost Dragon Ballian style thing where you have like it's very Looney Tunes to have like the small confident character and the big oafish character as the comedy duo.
Yeah. It's that of mice and men kind of dynamic.
Yeah, that everyone's been ripping off ever since.
Yeah.
So Asterix is. See, by the way, I find Asterix hard to say. So if we switch between, apologies, we'll be misnaming them probably pretty often through this, just to not have to stop and think every sentence.
Right. Yeah.
But so the movie opens up. The Romans are attacking again, and you get a really awesome fight sequence with the whole village taking draughts of this magic potion and just laying waste to them in cartoony way. Of course, like nobody's actually dies in this movie. It's just like slapstick fun.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I was a little surprised that the whole series wasn't like that, because I thought we were going to get another scene like that, and we really didn't.
Yeah, not really till the last episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so that was probably the best animation in the whole thing. There were a lot of other cool moments.
Yeah.
Also, it's a very jokey movie. Like it does have some stakes, and it does a pretty good job of not having too much bathos, aka improper humor in the wrong moments.
Yes. Yeah. Unlike many newer Marvel movies,
or a lot of kids movies for that matter.
Yeah.
Like in terms of animation quality, I'd say I would put this around the quality of like Illumination movies I've seen recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like it isn't quite, and I would say while it might be technically inferior, the art style borrowed from the comic and just the overall direction of it makes it so much better than some DreamWorks stuff like Ruby Gillman, which probably had a much larger budget, but it was not applied properly.
No, it was not. Oh God, oh man, that movie was. Ugh.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they. So what happens is you also have another character, a druid named Getafix, and he's the one who's creating this magic potion, and he's trying everything he can to make this potion. And
Wait, we're back to the flashback to when they were kids.
right, yeah,
Right.
in
They're being bullied by the son of a chieftain from a neighboring village. Let's see here. It's
Cassius Ceramics.
Cassius Ceramics, right? Yeah, because glass jaw. I'm guessing because he's
It-
just a huge bully who can only pick on people weaker than himself.
yeah, yeah.
But like he bullies them into getting something from Get-A-Fix's shed, and in the process, Obelix accidentally, well, he doesn't accidentally add more stuff to the potion. He very intentionally does it because he thinks the potion is kind of bland.
Yeah. He throws a bowl of strawberries and what he thinks is a giant prawn, but is actually a lobster.
Yep. And then when Get-A-Fix comes back, they have to hide, and in the process, Obelix falls into the potion. Now, one thing I will say now I'm not even going to pretend I'm a lifelong Obelix fan, but in every Asterix and Obelix thing I've ever seen, they always implied that he had fallen in when he was a baby, but he was like around 8 or 9 there. In fact, even in the movie, the dialogue was unchanged for, fell into the potion when he was a baby.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And he uses his newly enhanced strength to fight off the bully, Cassius. So he turned out that he just permanently has super strength, where the other Gauls only have it temporarily when they can get a dose of this magic potion. But hey, the Romans will never be able to fight them as long as they have access to the magic potion. And then Obelix tosses one of his trademark. He makes these big stones that like menhirs, was it? Or
yeah,
menhirs.
Menhirs, yeah. I kept hearing veneers, but like teeth, but no, it's menhirs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I think it was like a sacred stone to the Goths, is my best guess.
Yeah.
But he tosses it to try to get some Romans who are trying to capture Get-A-Fix, and hits him, and he is amnesiac, and he could probably make it in the Senate, but not in not in everyday life.
Yeah. Yes, and so then we cut to the Romans, and there's a new character which I guess they brought in just for this series.
I cannot discount the possibility that she was introduced in some of the comics, because they are still coming out with comics periodically.
Okay. But yeah, there's a girl in there her name's Metadata, and she has a plan, and takes it to Julius Caesar and says, well, in Gaul they have this what do you call it, a law.
Yeah, this law, this tradition.
Yeah, that when a chief of one village challenges another chief to a fight, and if that chief wins, then they take over the village. So they get
they get the bully, who is now the chief of his own turncoat Gallo-Roman village.
Yes, to challenge the chief of the Indomitables, which is, what was it, in Vital Statistics?
Yes. By the way, all the characters have very silly names.
Yeah.
Metadata is kind of there are two characters in this movie who are kind of unnecessary. One is in their quest to try and fix Get-A-Fix, they go to this woman, this apothecary, who is a goth. She has a German accent, and she's dressed like a modern goth.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she ends up being kind of a waste of potential.
Yeah, there's only one. The best part of there is this whole bit where she's kind of acting like a couples therapist for Asterix and Obelix. When they're in there, they're just like they're like complaining about each other like a married couple.
But like, she doesn't ruin the movie. It's just kind of a waste of character design and potential.
Yeah.
Metadata. okay, so there's a dragon that every Netflix original must slay, and that is whatever tokenized requirements or whatever, you know what I'm trying to say, like whatever. I don't
Yes.
want to say a 3-letter acronym that's been overused lately, but I don't want
Uh,
to say a 4-letter word that was overused 2 years ago. But
yes. Yeah.
politically correct, the token. What's the term for like having a? Anyway, she's kind of the modern audience insert character
Yeah.
because she's cool with this plan to get the last Gaulish village into the Roman Empire, but she is not very Roman. She's kind of a Gallaboo.
Yeah. Yeah. She doesn't wear a toga. She wears like more modern clothing.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's very concerned about how many trees they're cutting down to make this place where they're going to have the fight.
Yeah.
Like she is basically the modern audience character.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
fortunately, this movie managed to slay that dragon because while she isn't terribly funny on her own, as these characters never or very rarely are,
Mhm.
she does not she does not drag things down too badly because she acts as a bit of a straight man for some of the other humorous characters like POTUS, this tubby legionnaire who is like the face of the Roman grunts, who's always around, and
Yeah.
that guy suffers so much in this movie.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah. And then also her uncle Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I would love to know what his French name was because I'm guessing that most of these have a sillier French pun involved with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so not to go, I don't think we need to go blow by blow with the rest of the movie, but
No. No.
what I will say is that it is very good at setup and payoff.
Mhm.
Things that I wasn't expecting it to bring up again were actually vital to the story.
Yeah.
The I don't know, and again, there have been like 60 of these graphic novels now. So the handful of things I've read, they never had a real risk of the Romans getting their hands on the potion, and
Uh,
so seeing that as a plot point was actually very bold and interesting. Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
Also, when you have characters who are invincible, as long as most of them can have access to the potion, one of the better things you can do to create some tension is remove the potion and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which
there
they
is
do.
nothing
Yeah.
good. Nothing
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Um, I think my only complaint about it is there was a bit of modern writing in it, in the sense of like jokes where the joke was that characters were going on for too long about something.
Yeah. Yeah. And they also used a lot of modern music too, like a lot of pop
Uh,
songs.
yeah, the only time I thought it was actually appropriate was they had this one, like it was the 70 BC. It's like, well, yeah, it was the 70s, and so they start playing a 70s pop song. That was a pretty good joke, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I would have rather had some original music instead.
Yeah.
But it does make it feel very much like a modern CGI movie.
Yeah. There was one joke that I kind of liked where they were talking about the way that time was kept. Like,
Mhm.
well, it's 50 BC, and then one of the characters is like, before who?
Well, and they had another bit where I think, but I think we have too many gods. What if we narrowed it down?
Yeah.
Like, there's just a lot of little humor here, and I could actually see this stoking an interest in classical history in a kid who watched it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's actually you could probably show this to like elementary school or middle school kids in like a history class.
Yeah, like there really isn't like, of course, not as like main learning, but
Right. Yeah.
you know how every school right before Christmas break or summer break they go, okay, you're not going to learn anything anyway because you're too excited. let's put on a movie that's at least somewhat educational.
Yes. And we'll get Domino's or Pizza Hut for you.
Yep. But I think that I mean I enjoyed myself more than I was thinking I might. I was ready for it to be another modern Netflix production, and
Yeah.
it really exceeded my expectations there. Actually, that's 2 weeks in a row. And you know what the unfortunate, sad fact of it is?
What?
Neither was made in America.
Oh, that's true. Oh. Well, I guess that must be the key to Netflix originals. Just don't watch one that's made in America.
And I hate that that's actually fairly accurate.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, I enjoyed the show. Yeah, it's fun. You know, I hope they do a season 2. They said it was a limited series, but I don't know. Maybe they might do a sequel to it.
Yeah, I don't know how successful it was, but it deserves to be watched.
Yes.
Let's see here. Well, you know what might have been made in America? Question mark. Life Force.
Life Force, yes. Well, actually, I think it was mostly made in the UK.
Oh man.
Yeah, so darn. But yeah, no,
Our transition is ruined.
That's okay. It's okay. Well, it has American actors in it, so. But yeah, so I watched Life Force, which is a 1985 Canon Films sci-fi movie from director Toby Hooper, who is famous for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He also, as the poster says, directed Poltergeist, which I believe was probably his most successful movie, at least financially. Although most people know him for Chainsaw. But in the 80s, he signed a 3-picture deal with Canon Films, and this was one of them. And this was actually one of Canon's most expensive movies. I looked it up at a budget of $25 million, which in 1985 numbers, that was quite a bit of money. And it's actually based on a novel called Space Vampires.
Okay, why did they make that the title of this? That's an amazing title.
I don't know. I can't help you.
Also, yeah, just to give you an idea, do you want to know what the budget was for Superman 4: The Quest for Peace 5 years later?
10 million?
17 million. So
Ah,
yeah, so more expensive than Superman 4.
wow. Yeah, that's pretty astonishing. But yeah, so this movie it starts off we meet the crew of the Space Shuttle Churchill, which is crewed by astronauts from America and Great Britain, and they're off to study Halley's Comet. And as they're approaching the comet, they see an object that is 150 miles long, and they go on board the ship, and they find a bunch of like giant dead bat-like creatures, and also 3 human-looking bodies in suspended animation. One of those bodies is a beautiful young woman who is completely naked. And
okay, so the whole space vampire thing is way more literal than I was expecting.
yeah, oh yeah. Although in this they don't suck out your blood, they suck out, like, I think it's called life force because they literally suck out people's life force, like like the electrical impulses of their brain and their nervous system.
Okay.
And Arco says he's never seen it before. He's intrigued at space vampires. This I will say this movie is when it came out, it was a bit of a bomb, like a lot of Canon movies were, but it developed a cult following over the years, and it's kind of gotten like some second life, especially in the last few years. But yeah, so they bring the space vampires, they bring them on board the space shuttle, and then Earth loses contact with the Churchill for a month. And so then they send up the space shuttle Columbia, and they go on board, and they find that the whole inside of the shuttle has been completely torched by fire, and the escape pod is missing. And so they're trying to figure out what exactly happened. And of course, they bring the three people back, the three humanoid looking space vampires, although they don't know that they're space vampires until the girl wakes up. And the actress's name is I believe she was French, Mathilda May. And I think I looked it up, and she has, I think, like 12 or 15 minutes of screen time in the whole movie, and she spends about 99% of it completely naked.
Okay, so it's not exactly the most cerebral movie.
No, it's not. No, it definitely it's more in line with like like sci-fi horror. And so the kind of the two kind of main characters of the movie are Colonel Carlson, he was the commander of the Churchill, and he has this psychic connection with the space girl. And the other character, who's an SAS colonel, Colonel Kane. And so they basically, they're trying to figure out, like, they're trying to find the space girl, and then the other two space vampires were with them. They think they killed them, but they really didn't. And so what happens is, as they feed on people's life forces, the person that they fed on has to feed on somebody else in order to stay alive. And it starts to kind of spread like a plague. And it's kind of interesting. Like, the first act of the movie, it kind of feels like a space adventure. And then the second act is like kind of like a mystery, thriller type thing. And then the third act is like full on zombie apocalypse. Like, they just go full board, like, because I think most of the movie, the budget for this movie went into just the destruction of London as the space vampires, starts spreading throughout the population.
Which, that's a sensible place to spend your money.
Yes,
That's your money shot.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Yeah, Narcos is so it's got a high arts film. Yes. Oh yes. Well, it's Canon Films. What more can you ask for? But I will say, like, the movie does have some flaws. It's it's definitely one of those not having too much plot getting in the way of the story, because there's certain things, like, there like aspects with the space vampires that don't really get explained very well. Yeah, and they kind of like gloss over a few things, but overall it's a fairly entertaining movie. And it has a decent story to it. It's not perfect, but this was actually the movie. Do you remember the Tom Cruise Mummy movie that we watched?
Yes.
Yeah, that movie ripped off this movie.
Really?
Yeah. Like the whole thing where, like Tom Cruise, when he has this like connection with the mummy chick.
Okay.
They took that right from this movie, and also like the destruction of London and everything else. Yeah.
Kirkman really is a hack.
Oh, he is. Yes.
Just for the description of this, I can see why this would be why wouldn't necessarily attract a mainstream audience. Like, ghosts, everybody gets ghosts.
Yeah.
But imagine having to explain to your grandma about space vampires. Like, it's a little high concept.
It is, yeah. And that might have been a big issue when the movie came out. Again, a lot of people were just like, "What is this? I don't get it." But yeah, check it out. If you're interested, it's on Amazon Prime. So,
well, it's time to move from Life Force to Life Eld, because I reviewed Deadpool Team Up, a 2024 miniseries written and drawn by Rob Liefeld. Now, while I was a 90s kid, I never really read any of Liefeld's X-Men comics. I came into the hobby a bit too late. And so I've honestly, I'm just going to say it. I was one of those guys in the 2000s sharing around some of his wonky art panels. Like, haha, Rob Liefeld is an enormous hack. Isn't he fun to make fun of? Then I actually started listening to his Rob Observations podcast. And what I will say is that whatever you think of his art style, the dude has a love of comics that is basically unmatched. In another world, he would be this generation's Stan Lee because he is just so enthusiastic about it. And so I have a great appreciation for him. So when he comes out with a new series, if it sounds interesting, I'll give it a go. A couple years back, I reviewed his, what do you call it? Who's the ninja from G.I. Joe again? Snake Eyes. His Snake Eyes miniseries, which he had done as sort of like Snake Eyes was one of the visual inspirations for Deadpool, as you can kind of see just looking at him.
Oh, yeah. Although the complete opposite, though, in terms of personality, because Snake Eyes doesn't talk,
yeah,
and Deadpool just can't shut up.
Yep. But I thought that was quite good. So one of his episodes, and also he recently had a big falling out with Marvel because for the Deadpool and Wolverine after party, he was not invited. He was there, but he was told he could not enter. And so he basically said, you know what? You've been disrespecting me for years. And following his Twitter has been kind of fun if you're like me and kind of enjoy watching people point and laugh at Marvel's foibles these days.
Yeah. I follow him too on Twitter. Yeah, he's entertaining. Yeah.
But this one I picked up because he mentioned it on his podcast, and it was basically he mentioned that he was saying goodbye to his characters in the course of it, because I think that timing wise this would have been after that premiere and after everything. I think that because of course you have some lag time when you're making a comic. I think he was on like issue 4 of 5 or 3 of 5 when that incident happened. And I wonder how much that impacted the story, because truth be told, it's kind of like an extended series of fight scenes, is the way I'll describe it. Basic premise is that Rob Liefeld got to pick a character from a 1970s Fantastic Four annual that he read as a kid and loved. We had this guy named Rogel Dorn from a Planet of Dragons who appeared once and never again. And basically a dragon egg ends up on Earth, and Deadpool is given an assignment to capture it, but he ends up running into this dragon prince, Rogel Dorn guy. And over the course of things, they end up on this planet called the Weird, I believe. It's been since last week since I read it, or Weird World, that's it. Yeah. Which is supposed to be like a kaleidoscopic, always shifting landscape. And so they're trying to get this dragon egg and make sure that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, because partway through the story, a version of Cable from a future and a Major X there, who's a newer Rob Liefeld creation for Marvel, show up to say that, basically dragons have taken over the world. And we're here we need to stop this from happening. And then it's basically a big last fight against this dragon army. Now, listening to the podcast, it sounded like it was he talked about how through the voice of Deadpool he said goodbye to these characters that he had written and loved for all these years. And that bit was a bit touching. The rest of the comic, I don't necessarily know that he was planning to leave Marvel behind forever when he started it, because most of the first part of the comic is just a character shows up because of timey-wimey shenanigans. They get into a fight with Deadpool and Wolverine. A little bit of rinse and repeat there.
Yeah.
While Deadpool makes some reasonably funny jokes. Rob Liefeld's Deadpool is a bit different than other people's Deadpool. Like, as far as I can tell, there have been three main flavors of Deadpool. There was the Daniel Way version from the 2000s where he had two voices in his head with different colors of voice bubbles to distinguish which of them they were.
Oh, that sounds like it would get confusing.
A little bit. That's also the version that the Deadpool video game was based on.
Okay.
And it made a bit more sense in that, just because you did have two very different voice actors. Because like the writers weren't always in the comics weren't always consistent. Because one in the video game one sounded very like erudite and stuffy, and the other one just sounded like Deadpool turned up to 13.
Okay.
So like that added to the humor, but that's neither here nor there. Then you kind of have complete insano Deadpool, who's just like waka waka waka. I'm the funny guy, chimichangas. Even though the first time he said chimichanga and made that into a joke, he just liked saying it. He explicitly did not actually like eating chimichangas. He just liked how it sounded, and that was the joke. But people missed the memo on that one, and he's become chimichanga obsessed over the years.
Yeah, I believe Ryan Reynolds even had that in the movies too.
Probably. But the Rob Liefeld / was it Joe Casey flavor of Deadpool is somebody who is a bit more serious, but just like it's kind of like classic Spider-Man, where he would just make quips to distract people, or to lessen his own mood. So he's much less madcap than you might expect if you're a modern Deadpool fan, is my overall point with this.
Okay.
Besides the tearful goodbye, like again, it is just a series of battles, which is kind of what you would expect for a team-up book. I don't know how Ghost Spider got in there. Because all the other characters, it's like, okay, you have the crystal guy there. I bet he was somebody from the 70s that Liefeld was fond of. Of course, if you have the opportunity to draw Wolverine fighting the Hulk, why wouldn't you?
Oh yeah.
You bring in your own creations because, hey, why not? You bring in this 70s obscure character because, hey, no one else has. I'll do my own thing with them. But Ghost Spider is such a random choice. Did they just say, look, you got to have a female somewhere in this comic book after the first issue? Come on, man.
Yeah, that may have been like Brevoort or somebody like that telling them to do that.
Since I kind of think of him as an artist first and a writer second, maybe he just liked the costume and wanted an excuse to draw it.
Yeah, maybe.
But so like line wise, like it's very simple. Like there aren't really any twists or turns because you kind of find out about things as they go. Art wise, as always, Liefeld brings the action. He didn't really bring the backgrounds as much, and that's a not infrequent thing from him, but it was especially, I think there were whole issues where there might have been a couple of backgrounds drawn the whole time.
Okay.
There are also some interesting things going on with the coloring, where like when they were trying to make the weird world look kaleidoscopic, it had this bunch of paint splotches and stuff where it looked like drippy watercolors, which didn't entirely work. Like it didn't really sell the nature of weird world as the characters were describing it.
Was Liefeld a colorist too, or is he just pencil?
Pretty sure he wasn't. Yeah, I don't think he's a colorist at all.
Okay.
I don't know if he inked his own work on this one. Don't have the book handy, but
Yeah.
Overall, I would say that if you're a Rob Liefeld fan, definite go. If you're not, if you're like I was a few years back and just thought he was a complete hack, no, he really isn't. He's just kind of a well-meaning dork like the rest of us,
Yeah.
who just has a very particular art style, which works for some people and doesn't for others.
Yes,
But
yeah, and contrary to popular belief, he can draw feet.
yeah, see, there's a couple of them right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and two more in the back there, sort of. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, half credit for those.
Yeah.
They're obscured.
Yeah.
But like if you just want to see some rip roaring superhero fights drawn by a legend, go for it. If you're the type who prefers to have a deeper story, the last issue has that. There's also a funny bit where Rob Liefeld inserts himself into the book a little bit, but I won't spoil how that happens. But yeah, a solid C or B, and not like modern grade inflation C, where it's like, oh, if you got a C, you really had an F because they just don't want to make your parents angry. And it's like, no, this is a solid effort.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Very cool.
Now, speaking of things that actually do have a deeper story to tell.
Yes.
Clint Eastwood's The Mule.
Yes. One of his last acting credits, if I'm not mistaken. In addition to directing the movie. Yes. So this movie is actually, I think, loosely based on a true story. Where so Clint Eastwood plays Earl Stone, who is a 90-year-old horticulturalist from like suburban Chicago. And he's, we're introduced to him, and he's, he shows up to one of these horticulturalist conventions or award ceremony, and he's yucking it up with everybody, and he's like, all happy and like, hey, how's it going? And
life of the party, has to be the center of everything. Buys drinks for the whole bar because he's doing so well for himself.
Yeah, but in reality, he is missing his daughter's wedding
right at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we fast forward 12 years. So yeah, that part of the movie was in 2005. So then we fast forward to 12 years to whatever, 2017, and his business, he's gone out of business because of that dang internet.
Which that's interesting that the internet would disrupt his business, because I would think that as a horticulturalist, like, that's harder to ship.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more just his outmoded style of like being a traveling salesman type.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because that's part of his character, is that he's been to 41 of the 50 states, and he just drives around. And he shows up to his granddaughter's engagement party or rehearsal dinner.
Engagement party. Yeah,
engagement party. Yeah, and of course he has a rather bad little confrontation with his daughter and his ex-wife. Ex-wife is played by what was her name? Diane Wiest, and she's an actress who's she's kind of one of these character actresses. She's been around for a very long time. And actually, his daughter is played by his real life daughter. Allison Eastwood. So yeah, so second movie that Eastwood movie we've watched where he cast one of his daughters in there.
Well, why not?
Yeah, yeah. And so, but at the engagement party, he meets a friend of one of his granddaughter's bridesmaids, and he works for works for the cartel, and wants to offer him a job because he likes to drive around, and he's an old man. He's very
Yeah.
cautious. He's never gotten a ticket in his life.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's from there he starts his life, his new career as a drug mule.
Yep. Now, this, I would say that this kind of acts as this is mainly a character study,
Mhm.
which means that you do have some maybe not quite is indulgent the right word, or just like very deliberate. Like he's just really trying to paint a picture of this guy.
I think deliberate's probably the right word, which most of Eastwood's movies are like that, where he's very deliberately trying to establish who the people are. Actually, I think most of his movies are character studies. Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, and he takes his time to actually show who these people are.
Right.
To give them a sense of their personality and their backstory, so that once once what happen in the movie happens, it's either not surprising, or it's like, oh, that's not good.
The other thing I'll say for him is that unlike a lot of characters, like I'll say Stallone definitely has a groove that he almost always goes into when he's creating a movie.
Yeah.
Uh, Eastwood, he never seems to really play the same character twice. Like Dirty Harry is a different character than his character from Unforgiven is different than like outside of sequels like the
Yeah.
Fistful of Dollars movies, of course. But
Yeah, or something like you've probably never seen Firefox.
I have
Uh,
not. No.
no, that was another one of his movies. It was a Cold War movie where he plays a fighter pilot.
Okay.
He has to go to the Soviet Union to steal a experimental fighter jet that can be piloted by thought.
Okay, I forgot to mention this earlier when you were doing Life Force, but
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest impacts that Harry Potter has had on Western media is it just completely destroyed the prevalence of psychics in media, psychic and
Yeah.
psychic phenomena. Like it
Yeah.
just made people very much more comfortable with going, yeah, it's magic, what of it?
Yeah.
As opposed to like trying to go, oh yeah, it's psychic, and there's some conventional science says that there's nothing to psychics, but there's vibrations and stuff. No, it's just magic. Just
Yeah. A wizard did it.
yes, much cleaner.
Yeah.
Uh, but speaking of things that aren't clean, though,
Oh yeah.
it's like I'm trying to imagine Stallone's version of the Mule. I could not see Stallone voluntarily being a character who had abandoned his family for no reason other than a self gratification. It would have had to have been like, oh, he was in a POW camp, or his best friend needed his help because he was in trouble with the mob or something. Like
Yeah, or a relative who's sick and he's got to pay their medical bills and he needs money. Yeah.
right. That's why he starts driving. Nah. The mule is Earl Stone. The mule is a very selfish man.
Oh yes, yes. Extremely selfish. Yeah.
I would almost say he's a sociopath, except for that he does seem to have some sort of conscience.
Every now and then, yeah, he'll kind of like stand up for somebody, or he'll kind of if something's somebody's doing something that even somebody crosses the line that even he wouldn't cross, he'd be like, no, I'm not doing that.
Right. But like he's like, yeah, he'll do things like when he's been explicitly told by his handlers, no extra stops. He stops to help a couple on the side of the road.
Yeah. They stop at a barbecue restaurant to get a pulled pork sandwich.
Well, why are we here? Because this is the best pulled pork sandwich in the state.
Yeah.
Like he's very so like, he's not like clinically psychopathic or unable to understand the feelings of others. He just doesn't put a whole lot of value on them. He wants freedom. He wants to do what he wants when he wants it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you definitely see that when people start telling him what to do, he really doesn't like it.
No, he does not.
Yeah.
I mean, probably spent like at least 50 years running his own business and being his own boss. He's not used to taking orders.
Yeah. Which I personally I can relate to that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and of course, at first when he's earning the money, he's putting it towards like kind of good things. So like like paying for his granddaughter's wedding and
Helping the local VFW.
yeah, yeah, um, and or paying for his granddaughters to go to beautician school, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But but most of the time, like you kind of feel like he's just doing it because he wants to do it, not necessarily. And I think getting the money too really, because every time he opens up an envelope, he just sees this stack of cash in there. He's like, oh, okay.
Yep. And also, when you think about it, he is kind of the perfect character to be a drug mule for the Mexican cartel, because
Oh, man.
who would possibly think it was him?
Yeah, yeah. He's old guy driving around. Yeah,
Old white guy driving around.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and he does have some close calls in there, which he handles pretty darn well. It's actually like it seems random at first, but I think in retrospect he had planned all of these out as ways to distract people in case he was pulled over.
yeah, yeah.
So like he isn't completely spontaneous. He's a very nice complex character that's just interesting to think and talk about.
Yeah, yeah, he is. And of course, then there's another subplot with these DEA agents. One of them's played by Bradley Cooper, and then the other one was his partner was Michael Pena, the guy from the Ant-Man movies, who talks really fast.
Which it's yet another movie kind of like a Working Man, where it's like, oh man, Michael Pena is in it. I'm so excited. Oh, he's a very minor character. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I did like so one of the things that they do is they get a guy in the cartel to be a snitch for him, and there's a scene in the movie where they're sitting in the truck, and Michael Pena tells him, hey, if you can think of anybody else to snitch on, just think about it. What did he say? Ruminate on that, while we're waiting.
Yeah, it occurs to me we've kind of left out so the DEA agent characters. They're kind of more just foils. Like they don't have a lot of character growth. They're just a antagonistic force in the background that eventually comes to the foreground.
Yeah.
We've kind of neglected the cartel itself a bit, because those are the characters he's talking to the most.
Yeah, and then there are different, obviously, like a lot, like every cartel, there are different groups of them around, and what was interesting is that after a while, like the more he starts hanging around with these guys, the more they start liking him.
Right. That's another part of his character, is that he's just very personable.
Yeah.
But it's like the sort of surface level personable. Like you wouldn't want to have to depend on him for anything. Like
yeah,
like if you needed a ride to the airport, you would not ask him to do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and The cartel's led by I can't remember the character, but he's played by the name of the character. He's played by Andy Garcia, and this is actually the second time I've seen Andy Garcia playing the head of a drug cartel. The first time was in Landman. Oh, I think he I think that's his new niche now as an actor.
Not the worst niche.
No. But yeah, he Garcia really likes him because he's just because like he's kooky old man, yeah, but hey he delivers the product when he needs it delivered, and he's an old guy, so nobody questions what he's nobody questions why he's driving around.
Yep. There's a younger cartel person who's his main handler, who I forget his name, but he is much more type A and unhappy about this whole situation because he doesn't like dealing with this old coot.
Right. Yeah. He didn't like babysitting him. Yeah.
But so like whoever his actor is, and they don't have a picture here that I recognize on IMDb, so my apologies. I don't want to just and a bunch of these actors don't actually have a photo on IMDb, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they were just relative unknowns that he plucked in for the movie.
Probably, yeah.
But the handler character also does a good job, and I think the other thing that's interesting about the Mule as a character, about Earl Stone as a character, is that okay. So last week's movie, American Gangster, did not shy away in the slightest about showing you just the negative impact that drugs can have on a community.
Oh yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
This movie, not so much. Like it, like basically, you never see anybody actually doing drugs. It's all just it's basically he delivers a few hundred keys of cocaine to a location, gets his pile of money, and doesn't think about it again.
Yeah.
So even as he's using his money to do good things for his family and community and himself, there's a lot of human suffering baked into that.
Yeah. And like you said, they don't touch on that, and for people who do that, the mules, that they just drive the drugs around. They don't think about that. They're just thinking, I got to get from point A to point B, get my money, and then go and do it all over again.
Yep. But and so what's funny is that as I went through the movie and was realizing, oh wait, he isn't really all that good of a guy. It suddenly answered the question I had early on, like, well, why would he do this outside of desperation? Like, oh no, I think he would have done this out of boredom, just to make a bunch of easy money, even if he wasn't in danger of having his house depossessed.
Oh yeah. I could see that. I can see that. Yeah, because it's just there's his personality type. Yeah.
Oh, the other funny thing that kept happening. Okay, so Clint Eastwood, director, actor, not one of the writers, but the director gets to decide what happens in the movie ultimately, right?
Yeah. I think I know where you're going with this.
So it's very important in this scene that we focus on her butt and while she's dancing with my character. Man, make it and also he needs to go in and get a handful of that.
Yeah.
Mr. Eastwood, you already had a scene where your character had a three-way with prostitutes. Do we need another one? No, it's symbolic. It represents how he's torn between two attractive things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta love Clint.
Maybe just a teensy bit of wish fulfillment in there.
Maybe a little, yeah. Yeah.
But I don't want to get into the ending because it kind of ends like you would expect it to end.
Hmm.
But it's just an all around good movie.
Yeah, it's solid. It's a solid movie. It's um not Clint Eastwood's best movie, but certainly he brought his A game, and
Right. Right. This isn't Unforgiven, but it's still a worthy movie.
oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is on, what did we watch this? Netflix?
Netflix, I think it's also on Max or HBO Max or whatever it is now that they've reversed direction on that
Yeah.
because it is a Warner Brothers movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but like, well put it is, it's like a lot of movies we end up reviewing for this channel are kind of like white bread or white rice, where like there's like it's just a quick sugar hit and then you move on. This is like a like whole wheat, or this is like a full filling meal where like I was just remembering the movie and thinking about it for days afterwards. So it's definitely a worthwhile experience.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. And I will say Clint Eastwood kind of has that effect on people, it seems, with his movies. Just, like Unforgiven, like I still think about that movie every now and then.
Yeah, he knows how to pick them and he knows how to make them.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and also, apparently, his very last acting role in a movie at this point is Cry Macho.
Oh, that's right.
This was his second to last.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, I think we've said all we need to say for tonight.
Indeed.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it as always. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, ring the bell, buy some comic books, and we'll see you later. Bye,
Night,
everybody.
everyone.